very happy to be here. Thank you for being here. Without further ado, I'm going to start my presentation. So, as Vasanthi already mentioned, I have been practicing as a graphic designer, as an illustrator and visual communication designer and artist for quite a while now. I have worked on a lot of commercial projects. Over the years, I have worked with students, in the teaching space. I have dabbled in a lot of different kinds of things over the years. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my journey in the last 2 years, which concluded in my first solo exhibition not so long ago. In fact, it came to an end just a couple of months ago. So I will tell you the story behind it, and I hope I can make it as interesting as possible for all of you to share in my journey. So my whole thing is called Meditations on Paper, and it was a serendipitous journey. Serendipity is essentially a sort of series of incidents, happy set of incidents that connect with each other and move on to the next. And it really was that. It was a serendipitous journey for me. In 2023, I had just moved away from all the other things that I was doing, and I decided that for the first time I would devote myself time to give myself time to do my work. And something that interests me is just working on illustrations. So I decided to have an Instagram account for myself. Instagram can be a very daunting place because there are so many wonderful illustrators, photographers, creative practitioners who are literally posting every day. And I decided to keep that aside and just focus on what I wanted to do, which was to just take a piece of A4 size paper, just take a pen and pencil and begin drawing. On June 20th, 2023, this was my first post on Instagram, and I had literally gone for a swim. I had seen a kingfisher when I was swimming, which was quite a sight, and I thought, how beautiful, how much better can it get? And I decided to make a drawing. I'm usually used to doing commercial illustrations over the years, and for the first time I just decided I'm just going to do draw in the way that I want to draw. And this was my very first post on Instagram, and I decided to do one post a week. That's it. So that would give me a sort of a way to create illustrations one a week and move ahead. So by January 2024, I had built up, a whole list of, like a whole lot of illustrations over a period of time. I read a lot, I watch documentaries, I watch films, I am in the habit of looking at a lot of different kinds of books, not just books that I read, but books that are maybe, full of images, full of illustrations, full of paintings. It could be many things. So different things inspire me. So it could be a quote, it could be a word, it could be a thought that has been put in my mind by something that I'm watching. So that resulted in a post a week, and as you can see, it kept building. In February of 2024, I met with George and Mirail through someone I know. They came to visit Bangalore, not their first time. And it was quite interesting because because they had come to Bangalore about 25 years ago, and they decided to visit Bangalore again to see where the city was at. And we got talking and we got into a conversation, and I was just, sharing the work that I do. I showed them my Instagram and I said, hey, see, because that's an easy way of sharing your work. See, these are the illustrations that I have been working on. And then I found out that they run a company which they have been, a theatre company, which they have been running for the last 40 years, where every 2 years they have a play. And it's called, the company has been around since 1985, and it's called the Cléda Company. In French, it's Compagnie du Cléda. So, it's in a small town in Switzerland, in the French part, which is where they live. And it's every 2 years when they have this play, it's not a professional production, it's more of a community production. So it's the community coming together and, having this play. So they were going to do a play on Friedrich Dürrenmatt's The Visit. That's what it's called in English. In French, they were doing a French adaptation called La Visite de la Vieille Dame, which means the visit of the old lady. And after seeing my Instagram posts, they said, would you be interested in doing a poster for our play? I said, of course I would be. I said, but I want to read more about the play. I want to know what it is about. So I also found out that, like I was saying, every 2 years they have done a different play. Either it's King Lear, that was their previous, play that they did about now 3-4 years ago. Or for instance, La Dame de chez Maxime, and so on and so forth. So over the years, they've done many, many plays. So they asked me if I would do a poster. I said, yes, of course I will do a poster. And then I picked up a copy of The Visit. I had never heard of the author before this. I didn't know about Friedrich Dürrenmatt. And this play was written in the early 1950s, and he wrote it as a play. It's not like it's written as a story and then it was made into a play. It was written as a play. Over the years, it has been reinterpreted as a comedy, as a tragedy, as a satire, from a feminist point of view, it has had many different interpretations depending on which theatre group has taken this up as its play. Then I wanted to look for some more information. So this is the author, Friedrich Dürrenmatt. He is Swiss German. He wrote in German, but he settled down in the French part of Switzerland for the rest of his life, which is where he wrote all his stuff from. And he always his plays were almost like they had subtle commentaries about the politics of the time, subtle commentaries about the society of the time, but not in a direct way, in a more symbolic way, in a way where it was not immediately evident. You had to know, or you wouldn't guess, like that. So I looked for more information about The Visit and realized that a Hollywood movie had been made of it with Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn. And the way it was interpreted there was Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, because it was the story of a woman who fell in, as a really young girl, she fell in love with this boy and she got pregnant. The whole town turned against her. She was thrown out of the town, and she went she left the town and came back as a very, very, very rich lady. But she came back with the idea of taking revenge. And her revenge was, she knew that the town was in shambles by the time she came back. So she said, I will give you a lot of money, but in return, you have to kill my ex-boyfriend. Which to them they said, no, 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 how can we do this at first? And then slowly you see the town changing. The lure of money and the comfort it brought was far outweighed doing something wrong, like killing somebody of their, who was part of their community. So what started off as, oh, no, 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 we can't do this, suddenly became this quiet conspiratorial thing where everyone just changed tack and said, but you did wrong, so you should die. So he was also subtly at that point in time highlighting the things that were happening in the post-Second World War Europe, and especially Switzerland, and the neutral, so-called neutral view that Switzerland took, but it was not neutral. They were at the benefiting end of many things which were pushed under the rug, and it was business as usual. So it was a very, very interesting story, and as I read the play, I realized that there are a lot of symbolisms that are present in the play, which I could bring in to my illustration. So they were still there, George and Mirail, in Bangalore, and I was on the throes of doing the next illustration for my Instagram. And I already started thinking about what am I going to do. It is a story about justice. So, and I also looked up a lot of the older illustrations that were done for the book and so on and so forth. So I already, if you can see, that's actually a self-portrait, but a stylized self-portrait obviously. And I don't wear patterned clothes, so I'm just having a good time making patterns on it. And you can see that I am already thinking about the play, The Visit. She also has, over the years, she has a limp on one of her legs. So her one leg is not hers, it's a prosthetic. And that comes from this whole thing of, the best analogy I can draw is from the theory of the ship of Theseus. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but a beautiful film was made quite some years ago, an Indian film, on the ship of Theseus, where there is a ship and you need to repair different parts of it. So you repair it. You repair this part with a new part, you replace this with a new part. In the end, is that ship the original ship or is it a new ship? So that's also something that plays into her whole prosthetic leg. Is she really her today after all those years, or is she not? So there's a lot of philosophical thought also that comes into play in this story, which obviously caught my attention, and I was really interested in that. So then I had to make some options for the poster, and I was, of course, it was preceded by many more sketches before this. This is just like the 4 things that I did. So each of these drawings that you see over here, even the black portions, the darker portions, are actually done by hand, as in it's just pen. I'm not using a brush. I'm not painting the black area. It's not happening in 5 seconds. It's taking me time. So each of these drawings has taken me a good 6 to 10 days to make, because I'm sitting and doing it bit by bit by bit. And that's why I call my drawings meditations on paper, because it is really a meditative process for me as I am working on them. So I created these 4 options for the poster, and then they chose this one. They chose to go ahead with this one. they at their end were already identifying who will play which character, who will be part of which scene, and they were already working on the adaptation, the French adaptation of the play. So we were having this long distance thing. And another thing I must tell you about George, whose picture I shared earlier, who is the founder of, one of the founders of Cleda Theatre, which is a small theatre company, is that he's 85 years old and full of beans. I had the most amazing interaction with him throughout, where he was, and we had this sort of English, French, I speak, read and write, not very fluently, but I can get by. So we had this beautiful communication over the next many, many months as I moved ahead, not just with the poster, but with the next part of the project. So he was very instrumental in filling me in on the bits I didn't know or any help that I needed to understand the play better and to understand how it was being adapted. So he was very instrumental in helping me understand how this play was taking shape and how it was moving forward step by step. And once they went back to Switzerland, it was all by email. Mostly all the communication was happening by email. So yes, so this was the final poster illustration, and which they had a design team of their own. For the first time, I was not part of the design team doing the typography and all of that, but I was part of sharing my point of view in terms of how it would take shape. So I helped out a little bit, but it was taken forward by their designer, Caroline Morisseau. And then they of course had to develop their posters, their brochures, their tickets, their whatever. So a lot of work is going on in the background while the play is also coming together. So there's a lot of work that's already happening. So then you can see that that's George on the left hand side holding the printed poster. So they printed the poster, then all the people in the theatre were going around from town to town handing out these pamphlets by hand and saying, please come and see our play, which was really, it was such a, it was really wonderful to see what a hands-on experience each one of them were having as an individual, so it was really a wonderful experience to see this unfolding as it moved ahead. Yeah, so then I proposed that let's not stop with the poster design. How about I make a series of illustrations for the play? And George said, wow, why not? Let's do it. And we can have an exhibition, because what was happening was that, suppose this is the space where the play is happening, and right here was a gallery. So they said, we can have an exhibition, we can have and then we said, oh, okay, Cleda is going to be 40 years old, so it's the 40th year, so perfect, let's do an exhibition and let's have the play going on simultaneously, so the people who come to see the play also get to see the exhibition, and it'll be like a collaboration. So it was all very exciting and I couldn't wait to get started. So yes, so each drawing was developed like this by hand. You can see all of this on my Instagram account. So the exhibition my exhibition was going to be for 3 weeks. So I was not going to be there in person for the entire duration of 3 weeks. So I had to make a film. And I called one of my ex-students who graduated, a long time ago, and is a filmmaker. That's him, Manush. So we decided to make a film. It's a 9-minute film, which I will show you at the end of the presentation. And our challenge was that it had to be a film with no subtitles. And at the same time, when I share it with you, or whether I share it with a French audience or anyone who speaks any language, you get what we are trying to communicate. You get an idea of who I am, how I work, and what I do at a glance. So that was the idea behind putting together the film. So the film would also be there in the gallery. So this was also a whole exercise which Manush and I did for about 2 months, 2.5 months. And yes, so that happened. And then I finished the illustrations. I'm not showing you the illustrations just yet. I'll show it to you. I'll show you some of the illustrations at the end. And this, I made a visit. I paid a visit to Switzerland, met with George and Mirail to hand over my illustrations. So my personal illustrations were A4 size, and the illustrations that I did for the theatre were done on A3 size. And it was again just paper, just pen, just pencil. So that was another conversation that I had to have with George, because George said, shall we say you're using Indian ink? And shall we say you're using, I said, no, George, it's simple. It's just paper, it's just pen. So that's it. So then he said, okay, because I used to call if you see my Instagram, I say meditations in pen on paper. But then he said, no, let's not use it like that. Let's say meditations on paper. I said, okay, fine. We'll leave the word pen out. So this was the time when I was handing over my illustrations, because when I'm working long distance, the other challenge is how do I frame and then take that bulky load all the way to Switzerland. So instead, just take my work in a portfolio, go there and get it framed there. That seemed to be a more practical solution to this whole problem. Then when I was there during this visit, they had organized a visit for me to the Dürrenmatt Museum. Now, I did search a whole lot of information about Friedrich Dürrenmatt, the author, before, but I did not know about the museum. And the museum is in the French part of Switzerland, in a town called Neuchâtel, which has a beautiful lake. So his house, which overlooks the lake, has now been converted into a beautiful museum. That's him working on his desk. So I had the opportunity to go there and be shown around the place by Madame Béchat, Madeleine Béchat. She was the director of the museum. So the museum was also celebrating its 25th year of existence. So that was really interesting to me. And he had a desk which was, I kid you not, it was from here all the way to here, far longer than any desk that I have come across. And it was long, it was like a single log of wood has been used. And he would use one side. That was another discovery for me, because you have to remember, by now I have finished my sketches, I have finished my illustrations. It's only now I'm seeing Friedrich Dürrenmatt's work and I'm understanding more about his work. So he would use one side of the desk to write and the other side of the desk to draw. I didn't know he was an illustrator himself, but then so did everybody else. He never showed his work. It was only after he passed on that people had access to the drawings and the lithographs and the sketches and the various other things that he has done, which was very, very interesting for me to again find out. And he too used, for certain sketches of his, only pen and paper. And that was another coincidence which I thought was so very interesting. And Madame Béchat really took time to take me around the museum. We had, and it's beautifully, his work is beautifully documented. It is a trust that runs the museum today. If you're ever in Switzerland, in the French part, ever in Neuchâtel, this is definitely a place that you should visit. And he never followed a single style. It's not like you could say, okay, this is Frederick Dürrenmatt style. The other reason he never showed his work was because it was very controversial. For instance, like the painting on the left side, it's about the bankers and what the bankers were up to, according to him, at the time when Switzerland decided to go neutral. So it was, I mean, you can see that the bankers are trying to shoot each other. They have a gun, there's a gun, they're holding their gun to their heads, and you can see the bankers are hanging. So according to him, it's like they're signing on their own debt. That was his point of view. Now if something like this was published back then, he'd be in a lot of trouble. So he would do this, but he would never show it. It was only after he passed on that all of this came out, and it was displayed and is now on display at the Dürrenmatt Museum. This was the other one was a very interesting piece of work. It was the toilet, the WC, the water closet in his home, which was removed. The plastering was removed piece by piece to fit into the space that they created as the museum. So that was quite a task, and they used to call, and Dürrenmatt would refer to it as the Sistine Chapel in his home, which was rather funny. So it was very, very interesting for me to discover this whole other side to this author who had written The Visit. In the meantime, there was also the preparation for the play that was going on. So they had this whole tent which was imported from Holland, which was it was a 110-year-old circus tent, which was imported from Holland and set up in the space where the play would be. And these sets, the sets that you see, these are actually the two directors of the play, and the entire set from here to here was modular. So as the actors were changing scenes, they would push one part of it and then it would be ready for the next scene, and so on and so forth. So you can, that's George again. So they were, and they are not they are not professional actors. During the day they have a completely different job, but come 6 p.m. they all come from wherever to meet and practice for the play for almost 8 months. I mean, that's a long period of time to devote your weekdays and your weekends to, and practice all the lines over and over again until they got it right and were ready for the play. And again, the way the community came together, the way they devoted their time, and all of that was just extremely inspiring for me to see and be part of. So you can see this is another part of their practice scene. This is where the town has already turned against Alfred Ill, who is the boyfriend who they want to now kill. But Alfred has now realized he is under attack, so he's not sure where to turn. So this is one of their practice scenes. And then, you know, also doing things like, say for example, while I was there, this lady who was playing one of the parts, she fell sick. So someone had to replace her, and this person who was already in the play knew her parts and he said, I'll play her part. So the next thing you know, he's wearing a wig, he's wearing high heels, and he's wearing, you know, a bra, and just going on stage and playing her part. And it was just, again, the bonhomie, the cooperation, the whole coming together of the different people from different walks of life for this play was amazing to see. And they also had a band on the stage. They had a conductor who was, you know, whatever, doing his thing, and that's them doing a dress rehearsal for the play. Okay, so on the same trip, I had to go and finally see the gallery. So this is the place where the show happened, It's like I said, the theatre was happening here and this was the gallery. It was literally like next to each other. So the gallery space on top has a clock and a watch museum, and on the other floor it has a space to show works of different artists. And then you can see that all the works have been framed and kept ready, and that's the gallery. So we were combining it with the 40 years of the theatre. So there was my work that was displayed as a solo exhibition, and then there was also the theatre work where we showcased their posters and their old whatever paraphernalia that they had. And so that's me. Yeah, we just were hands-on putting up all the stuff. It was really, really hot, unbelievably hot at that point in time. And but it was also a very beautiful space. So yeah, then they asked me to display some of the work in progress, like the thumbnail sketches, just to give an idea of what went into putting together the final pieces. And so you can see how simple my implements are in terms of what I put together. So and that's it. That was, the space was up and ready. We had the opening, and yeah, it went on for 3 weeks. I was there only for the first few days, where I had the opportunity to meet different kinds of people. I even met someone who came to me and said, "Oh, I have been to India, I have visited Kochi Biennale. Why don't you do something that is more Indian centric?" And I was thinking, no, but I have done this. But so we had a very interesting conversation. And in addition to her, I also met so many other people who were really curious about how this whole thing came together. How did this collaboration begin, and how did we arrive at this? So it was really great fun meeting all of them. I wish I could have stayed, but it was too long a period to stay. So these were some of my illustrations, and I'm still posting the rest on Instagram. There are 15, like I said, there were 15 pieces that I did. So I'm just showcasing 8 of them. So for example, like, for example, this one. So this is the time when she is talking to the people in town who are the policemen. And she's just having a casual conversation. Even the policeman doesn't know what she's up to. And she says, "Oh, but there must be, like bad things happening in town." And the policeman said, "Yes, of course, there are bad things happening, and I just close one eye." So she says, "Close both your eyes," which means that she doesn't want the police to see what's coming next. She just wants them to turn away. So I actually went through the French script that they shared with me and picked out specific lines with which then I created these illustrations. And like I said, each illustration, even the solid background that you see, has been done by hand as strokes, not as paint. So for example, even with this, like this is actually, it says, "The Many Husbands of Claire." So Claire is the main protagonist of this play. She's the one who is wronged and who has come back for revenge and justice, and has also come back in a manner of speaking for love. So these are 3 of her husbands. So one is a fisherman, one is an actor, and one is a Nobel laureate. So she has these very eccentric choice of husbands and men in her life. But she's had many before, and she will have many later. So this is how I envisioned each illustration as I went along. So I'm at the end of my presentation. So this is a paraphrased quote from Oscar Wilde, actually, which I think I identify with a great deal. "If you know what you want to be, you will inevitably become it. But if you don't know, you can be anyone. We are not nouns, we are verbs. I am not a thing. I am neither an illustrator, nor a designer, nor an artist. I am just someone who does things. I draw, I illustrate, and I never know what I'll do next. So this is the bit that comes in the film as in French, and the rest of it has nothing else, it's just this. And then that's my Instagram handle, Just Being. I've taken, yeah, it's like a play on my surname, and yeah, I am just being and just doing and seeing and creating. That's it. Thank you. You all recognize this is Bellary Road, but they don't know. For them it's fascinating. So yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vasanti. Thank you, Chandan, for having me. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, I'm very happy to answer, or comments. I suppose the film would have made a little more sense after the background I gave on everything that went into putting it together. No, it's not. In fact, if you go into my Instagram, there's a little link to a Behance thing. So you see you'll see more of my other work, and suddenly you'll realize that there are different ways and different materials that I work on. I think I decided to stick to just plain A4 paper and pen and pencil, because it then in a way removed, and even black and white, the decision to just do it in black and white, it just helped me focus more on the subject matter that I was then putting together. This particular series, yeah. So it was like a conscious choice to keep it simple, just pen and paper, that's it.
The entire video was black and white up until the last bit of it. Any particular
you noticed, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the space that I'm in, but then I also have this other bit, this whole other life that's also coexisting with this. But we are not focusing on that right now. We're just focusing on this. So, so that's where that played in. Yeah. And initially, I was not sure about using, the shots of the traffic, because for me, staying here, traffic noise is like, ugh. But for people who are not living here, for them it's of interest. That's what I realized. So we decided to include it and keep it so as to lend flavor to where am I coming from. I'm coming all 5,000 miles away from here to there, and So yes.
How did the play that happened and this illustration, which is black and white, how is that connected, or how do you connect?
Well, one commonality, of course, is the story, the script, because if you see the whole series that was displayed in the gallery, it started with the first scene and then the next and the next, and then ended with finally the guy getting killed and then everybody celebrating. So, of course, the adaptation of the play was more of a satire. So they had very colorful clothes, and they were dressed in bright pink and bright yellow, and holding this glitter glass of whatever it is that she was holding in one scene, and so on and so forth. So for me, it was, I knew what they were going to do, but I was also sitting many miles away and just doing what I was doing. And I felt I should stick with what I am doing to give it another perspective. And it seemed to work well, because when people would come, because I was there for the few days that I was there after the inauguration, people who came for the play would first visit the gallery. And then, I would be there with them, taking them around. George was also there taking them around, and we would take them through everything. And then they would see the play, and it somehow had an interesting synergy, and people really connected with it in their own way. They had their own interpretation. So that was nice. So in that
This play is an adaptation of a film that was made in the black and white era?
No. The play was originally written by Dürrenmatt, and then Hollywood made a film. There was also it was a black and white film which is available on YouTube to watch. It was also made into a German movie called Der Besuch, The Visit, and so on and so forth. So it has had many adaptations ever since.
I thought that black and white is
No, not really, no. Okay. It just, that was just a happy serendipity. Yeah, yes, yeah.
I know we are running out of time, but we have some design students in the audience, and if you could speak to the process, failures. Did you like get everything in like one go? Like how was it? Because there is like a lot, how, like if like something fails, doesn't work, it causes a lot of anxiety sometimes with students. If you could like maybe talk to that process.
Okay. That takes time. That takes a long time. You need to keep working to get to a stage where when you have a project, you are able to work it out in a way where it falls into place. Of course, there will be challenges along the way, but you are better able to deal with those hurdles when as you keep getting experience. So, I don't recall any challenges as such. So it's a story about this designer called Paula Scher. Paula Scher is best known for her logo for Citibank. So she was sitting in a cafe with her soon-to-be clients, and they had begun talking about reworking the Citibank logo. And while they were talking about it and the reasons for wanting to redo the Citibank logo and all of that, Paula Scher took a napkin and just sketched out and scribbled out, what would become the Citibank logo. And she said, here. So the guys looked at it and said, okay, you've done this in 30 seconds. So why do we pay you so much? So she said, well, I've been doing this for 35 years in order to do it in 35 seconds. So that's what you're paying me for. So it takes time to get to a stage where you keep working on, you have to do preparatory work. It cannot just, it's not like I will take a paper and I will be inspired at 6 p.m. No, that doesn't happen. You need to just get past your fear and start the work. I have been doing this kind of stuff since I was 5. Today I am 55. So I've been doing this for years and years and years, and still today, when I decide to, each of the sketches that you saw, before I start inking it, my hands are shaking, and then I say, no, I need to just do it. And then it's the whole thing of posting it on Instagram. Who will like it, who will not, all those things are going. I'm not removed from that. I have the same fears, but I'm doing it all. I don't care, I'm doing it all the same. It doesn't matter if somebody likes it or somebody doesn't, you do it. And that's the best way I can answer your question.
Nupur, I was struck by your somewhat casual sounding remark, but it's anything but casual, that it was your work for the first time.
Yeah.
You're doing work for yourself for the first time, and it can't just have been professional compulsions all the time. Right? What do you think kept you from doing your own work for this long?
Bread and butter.
Only that?
Yeah, only that. It's like Virginia Woolf. You need a room for yourself to work. You need money to be creative. Sometimes I'm not saying you need, like for instance Dostoevsky, what you were mentioning earlier, he would do another job and then make the time. I had to raise 2 kids, I had family, life gets in the way. So you find your ways to continue to feed your creative need for your soul, and then when the opportunity arises, you take it. That's it. Or you make the opportunity. That's it.
I was just pleasantly struck by how casually and subtly you highlighted how this work is not Indian. When the expectation of Indian is put on, not just artists, anyone from India, academics, you study India, and how subtly you did that just struck me as something that I will use as example in my class. So just wanted to say thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I just feel it's like this whole thing of, I think this whole thing of being in a box. People are, I understand that people come from certain experiences, backgrounds. So, I mean, even I do it. I'm always, I'm so cognizant of the fact that I have a surname that kind of puts me from a certain area that I come from, but I haven't spent any time there. But yet at the same time, when I meet someone, I'm saying, okay, so what's their surname? And oh, they could be coming from this place. So it's there, inherent within us. But there is this I don't know, I've always had it, this constant need to not be in a box. And which I think allows us to be like sponges, take in more experiences. Otherwise, if you stay in one area, then it kind of, I don't know, I feel it limits you. How do you then grow? For me, I don't know, growth is important. Should be, yeah, you caught that.
The black and white illustrations and the movie and the play coming together reminded somewhat of Persepolis, the graphic narrative.
Yes.
Marjan Satrapi.
Yeah.
The aesthetic seems to be somewhat similar. Not in the backgrounds are perhaps not done in the kind of detail that you do this, but something of the narrative and black and white reminds of that. And the other thing that I was thinking about is, even in terms of political cartoons, for example, there has been this shift from black and white only to color.
Yes.
So there is perhaps one particular year where a lot of contemporary cartoonists started to use color, and I think a lot of satire is actually lost in the color.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, it is somewhat a satirical play, the content is somewhat satirical and so on. So I'm wondering if there is a connection between caricature, satire and color. Like,
of course, it just depends on how it's used. Like for instance, even Mouse, have you heard of Mouse?
Yeah.
That's also another graphic novel that's been, I find it very interesting that you brought up Marjan Satrapi's Persepolis. I hope that I can do an autobiographical thing someday. I don't know if I'll have the courage to do it, but that's something to be said about Marjan Satrapi. But here I have lent in on another story to create the visuals. So to answer your question, yes, of course, color or no color, black and white, plays a big role in how one chooses to narrate the story and how the viewer chooses to read into it or perceive it. Absolutely, it does play a very key role. Black and white forces you to focus on, in ways that color does it differently. Black and white is very stark. It has a way of forcing your view to a focal point, whereas color has a way of doing it in other ways as well. It adds more layers. So yeah, I think sometimes it's very difficult to be simple, to draw simply or express yourself in a simple way. Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Somewhat.
I mean, like that, I guess, if one has to look at stories from across the world, there are so many that we feel are from here, but then you come across it and you realize, oh, okay, they too have a similar interpretation. I find those connections very interesting. So yeah, that's nice that you thought of that.